Guess we'll record. There you go. How you
There we
doing?
go. I'm good. How are you? How's Kristen? She's really? Aren't you guys vaccinated?
Yeah. She ordered a Oregon is weird with the like testing. You have to have like I think like insurance through the Oregon state to get a test, and there's like it's a whole mess here with that. Like, so she had to order a test from some place it's coming, and like, we'll see if she actually has COVID. But she was starting to feel sick when we were staying in the hostel like 2 weeks ago, but not really symptomatic. Like her energy was low and stuff. And then when we got to Idaho, um, yeah, she just got laid out for like 2 or 3 days. Like just stayed in the room the whole time. It's like she was like, I don't know, snotty and fevery and the whole thing or whatever. Yeah, and her energy's been sort of like off, and then for the past like 2 or 3 days she's had no taste, uh like, yeah, so yeah, I don't know, either she just got a bad cold, or like this was like a mild case of COVID or something. I don't know, we have no idea, but yeah, she's recovering now.
Fucking COVID.
I mean, who knows, I mean, it could just be a bad cold. We were around so many people in Utah, um but nobody was sick overtly, so she just picked it up from somewhere. And I didn't have anything, so I don't know. It's like it's uncomfortable, but she'll live. Like it's not terrible. It's just like having the flu. So like it's just annoying, especially if you're doing stuff like you were talking about last week, like getting sick.
Yeah.
Because it does. There, you can't really do anything other than rest, which she has a terrible time with. Um, because you just start feeling nuts. Like she can basically lay in bed. That's it. And then like at points she's just like too tired to watch TV or anything. So you're just like, dipping in and out. It's, yeah, not fun. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Eugene was saying that his was a confirmed case.
Mm,
Um, it took him 2 weeks.
yeah.
He's okay now. He's working now. For the
Mm,
past 2 days, he's been back. But during the 8 days, he was just basically sleeping, and
yeah.
then too tired to sleep sometimes even.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, it sounds really rough.
Yeah. That, I mean, the full blown, I mean, I'm curious if she picked it up and then the vaccination just made it less severe. Um,
Yeah,
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, she'll send in a test and then we'll know. Um, it is weird that you can't just like in San Diego or in California, there's all these like sort of county things. You can just sort of walk in and they'll test you. No appointment. Or I think you may need to make an appointment, but yeah, I don't know.
here we just order it home.
Yeah,
Um,
it's
they
probably the
just
same
send it
thing
to
here.
everybody.
Yeah.
So we have four of them at home.
Hmm.
So whenever we feel like, is
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Stick it
yeah.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think they're probably moving to the same thing here. It makes more sense. Like if they're, and then they just get sent out to a lab or whatever. Um, they also have the ones that just in the drugstore that you can pick up, and I think they're like home tests or whatever. You don't have to send it anywhere. But I don't know.
Ugh.
Hmm.
Uh, how's uh how's everything else been?
It's good. Like, so a little bit of a switch in like, well, a lot of a switch in like environment. So we're coming from like basically the country, um, into a city now. Like we're in Portland, and like all, yeah, it's like it's weird making these moves. Like there's like a definite transition like mentally from the like because I can think really well in the country because it's quiet. There's nothing happening. There's nothing to do, like except for like sort of walk around and like I'm not farming or anything, so I don't have anything work to do. So it's a good place to like concentrate on like writing or like working on stuff, programming or something like this, designing. Uh, because there's no real possibility of socializing. So what else are you gonna do? And then you come to the city and like I know a bunch of people here. I haven't reached out to them yet, but like there's a lot more to do. Like there's 15 coffee shops and all these restaurants, and then there's a park to walk to, and then there's hiking over here, and then there's bookstores to go to, and then there's a bunch of people we know, and we're also living with our friend John that we're working on the buzzard stuff with again. So there's like it's a lot more active. And then Kristen's sick, and then, so it's a and then there's even just the city noise, like, and there's people around everywhere, right? So it's like getting accustomed to being in that environment. We've mostly been in like pretty natural, like, or rural places. So there's just like a weird cognitive load that you pick up that like I have to like sort of readjust to that. Like, because I feel like I need to be somewhere else all the time. Like, I don't, but yeah, I don't know.
That's probably why Kanye West went to Wyoming.
1,000,000%. I mean, it makes sense. Like, does he live in New York? Where does he live normally? Probably lives wherever he wants to live. Has a place everywhere.
Yeah. Um, I did experience a little bit of this when I
Mm,
was in the old house here in Thailand. It was so far away from Bangkok. It's not
mm,
that much of a green area around you. It's just a village very, very far away from the city. But
okay.
in that place, I was so productive.
Yeah.
And then I had such a interesting sense of peace.
Mm,
Um, but then here, yeah, sure, I'm very productive here because of the lockdown, and
yeah.
the place is actually very comfortable, and you see the river, and it's very calming.
Yep.
Um, but place does a lot to your state of mind, which is crazy.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
actually, the first thing you optimize for is just going to spending good amount of money, I guess, or doesn't have to be expensive. But in your home, I used to, fuck, when I was in Stockholm, my office costed more than my home. And my house was a small studio, I think 37 something square meter. And then
mm,
my office was just probably four times that size,
yeah.
um, and a lot more expensive. And I'm like, no, I don't need a, for me, the place doesn't matter. I just sleep and then I sit behind the computer.
Yeah.
What's the
Yeah.
difference? Um, but then now I actually see how much of an impact it makes on how you feel.
Yeah. I was writing about this morning. Like, I'm trying to not judge it one way or another because I don't have like a particular like output goal or anything. So like part of the practice seems to be each place that we go has something that it like wants from me, something like this. Like, and I part of the play of the thing is figuring out who I'm gonna be in that place, like what kinds of things I'm gonna do, like not taking for granted that I would like to get a bunch of stuff done and then trying to force it in an environment that it's not going to work, but instead like the environment will sort of like condition some difference in the way that I am in that place. And so how do you like make friends with that? Which is hard because I'm like, I want to get all this shit done. Like,
Yeah.
but if the place is not suited to it, then you're just going to be banging your head against the wall. So yeah, I don't have an answer for that one yet. Like I've been getting a little bit better. Just if I'm in a place where like working is good, then I'll just lean into that and then make sure that I'm socializing enough, at least online. And if the
Yeah.
inverse is true, like we're in a place where there's a lot of people and people want to hang out and like talk and meet up and stuff, then do that for a while, right? Like, and then the other stuff will, it'll be fine for a while. So, yeah, I have no idea yet. We'll really see how this works out when we go to New York. Because I know so many people out there, and like I never really got the balance of like socializing and work there down. So I'm gonna get another run at it. Like I had no idea like that was important or you had to manage that or balance it or think about it at all. I just did stuff and then I would blow
Yeah.
myself up and then fuck, I'm not getting enough work done and then just stay and in our office and stuff. It was nice in Soho in New York. We had an office with a lot. We were sharing space with people because we were renting it out to a bunch of people who were doing interesting stuff. So I could just like socialize at the office, which was nice sometimes. But yeah, I don't know. Figuring all this stuff out now.
When are you guys going to New York?
Um, we're thinking about after here. So we're here for like at least a month, I think, maybe 6 weeks in Portland. And then my sister is getting married on the East Coast. So we're going out
Oh,
to, yeah, for that. And then after that, like I think probably some through October or something, maybe a month in New York, 2 months, maybe. Because we're going to be out there anyway. And then I have no idea after that. Maybe head back west again. So down through the south and then visit my parents and in Florida and stuff. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, I've been meaning to get back to New York. It'd be interesting. We found a service called sabbatical homes, and it's mostly academics or almost all academics who like do different. They move between schools and stuff, universities, and when they're at another university doing some, I don't know. I didn't go to school, so I have no idea what these things are. But Kristen has a better understanding. Uh, like they're doing a residency or something at some school across the country, and so what they do is they loan their house out to like
oh.
other traveling academics, and like you can put a want ad out, and then some of these places are like gorgeous, like brownstones in the city near a park or something like this with full of books. I'm like, that's great. I want one of those. So
Yeah.
they're usually good places to think, but typically they're for like longer, like 6 months or a year or something. You just sort of take over their house. Um, so there are a few of those in Brooklyn and then like Manhattan. So I don't know. We're gonna see. I don't know.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
how long have you guys been doing this traveling now?
think we're at 6 months now. Like it's yeah, 6 months since we left. You're right. I time it makes no sense. It feels like 15 lifetimes because like each place we go, we like set up a new persona and get settled there, and then we're leaving again, and then there's the transition of like who we're going to be in the next place and what were we there in this place. Yeah, so I don't know.
But the places that you've been, most of them are new places, or most of them places that you visited in the past. Like New York is probably a place where it would probably feel like going back home.
Kinda. I don't know. Like, so much has changed since COVID too. Like, a lot of the people that I knew there have left. They've either moved out to the country or they've moved to LA. A lot of people have moved to LA. So, what's interesting is like some of the places that I've gone, and this may be just part like this period in like growing older, like the relationship that I had to some of like Vegas, for instance. Like I have a lot of memories and because I went to high school there, like had my first girlfriend there, like like early relationships, like schooling, like early friends, like like a deep crew of friends and stuff. And then my parents lived there for 20 years or something. So there's a lot of like sort of sense memory. And we've gone through twice, and each time there's like a releasing of that stuff. The place looks new. It feels different. It feels like my relationship to it, like that place doesn't exist anymore. The place that I
Yeah.
had in my memory. Um, and so there's like a process of letting that stuff go and then like seeing it fresh with the person that I am now. Um, and there's been a lot of this in the like traveling around in the like Southwest desert. Like, a lot of the times that I was doing this before, I was like a teenager or like, my early 20s, and my perspective on the world was like fundamentally different. Like it was a place to get through to get to somewhere where I wanted to be. And now like we're staying there and we're like looking around and I'm like, okay. Like so yeah, there's a very weird connection to place that I'm developing now. Like and trying to relate to the people who live in these places to try and understand what they're like rather than like passing through and taking pictures and not really spending a lot of time in any of these places. So yeah, it's been a mix, probably like 60-40, 60% places we've never been, and then 40% places I've experienced before, but in very different scenarios. So yeah.
You came to Buckingham Beck's thing in Norway. And then I think you guys did some traveling in Europe too. But have you been here? I mean, here. Have you been to Europe? Traveled around as the way that you're doing it now?
No, not in
Or
this sense. I mean, when I was a kid, my parents, because they were in the military, they were stationed in Germany. Um, and up until I was like 5, we bounced around everywhere. Um, so I have like my early memories are of Europe, like yeah, Germany in particular, but then like I have like sense memories of England and Scotland, and then some of like Paris and then like Venice and these things, but some of those are probably from pictures and stuff. Um,
yeah,
because I mean, the reason that my dad went into the military is because he wanted to see the world. So, and he did, he went all over the place. So, yeah. But yeah, after I was like, early years, like when I started going to school, it was in the United States. I did kindergarten in Germany, and then after that, it was like Texas and California and Virginia, these places all over this in the United States. But yeah, as an adult, yeah, I've Amsterdam a bunch of times, like usually with this group of friends. I would piggyback on the Bakken and Beck thing and then just sort of bounce. We went to Iceland and then all over Norway and then uh, yeah, Amsterdam. Where else did we go? And then we did Portugal one year. So, but not really like we're doing now, where staying in hostels and like staying for longer stays. It was mostly like 1-2 week trips. So like just pop in and then usually like we know some people there, hang out with some locals, then go out and see some nature or whatever it is. So yeah, I'd like to do this elsewhere. It'd be fun.
very.
Yeah. Have you
As
done
it's
that?
come. I mean, I've done Southeast Asia and Europe, not
Hmm.
as much of Europe as I wish I could.
Yeah.
Um, but Southeast Asia, well, I don't do like how you guys are doing it. I go to the country and I stay in a few years,
Yeah. Yeah.
as those few years turn into couple. But um, just changing continent was such a big shift in
Yeah.
mindset for me that I just
I
got
bet.
addicted to it.
Hmm. What about it?
It's completely different mindset in life, speed,
Hmm.
goals, beliefs, and it shifts your entire beliefs. It's
Hmm.
crazy. Like um, I was talking to Luca. Luca is one of our designers, and we were as an experiment. I'm doing a fashion thing, and it's very interesting actually. I have probably a collection of thousands of photos that I've collected over the years, and I always like one day I will do my
Yeah.
own clothes.
Yeah.
Um, And I'm like, one day, fuck it, it may be as well today. I'm just gonna start this. This is the like, and then your brain kind of have these different ways of planning things for you, or like this before the other one, or this after once you've done
Mm.
this, then you can get to this thing, and then
Yeah,
it's just a self-torture thing. The thing that you want the most place is so further away in life. You're like,
yeah,
after I figure this out, I go to that.
sure.
But I'm like, no, fuck it. I'm gonna start the fashion thing. And I pulled all of the references images that I had collected over the years and then dropped them into Figma. And seeing the same colors repeating in
Hmm.
almost all of the images, the same patterns, the same shapes, you're like, wow, my whole personality
Yeah,
is right. I never knew like that's my color, or because you
yep,
have a
yep.
good understanding of yourself, where you go, what's your favorite color? You're probably like this, or you maybe don't have any. But then that came to life. And then he goes, did your sense of style or fashion or things you like change over the years? And I'm like, drastically when I moved to here
Mm.
to
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
and now Thailand. Because in Europe, you need to blend in. Otherwise,
Mm.
you become an outcast.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, I mean, people for different music tastes are usually, you have this group now, just go socialize with them. You
Hmm.
cannot, you're all separated small groups. People don't socialize in bigger groups. Versus here, I think the first thing that I noticed was that everybody's styles are so much different, which speaks to their
Hmm.
personality too. In Sweden, we are all almost the same people. It's like everybody wear the same clothes during the weekend.
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah.
do during the summer. That nothing stands out. Everybody is
Hmm.
just the same. And even though everybody is just the same, they're still not able to socialize with each other. You can only have a few friends that you are very close to. For whatever reason, you don't go beyond that to make new connections. It's a very difficult thing
Interesting.
to do, to make that breach. But in here, it was such a mental freedom to be
Hmm.
whoever you think you are and become
Interesting.
that in an instant almost. And then you are expected as however you are, um, which is so welcoming, so home-like.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Like I mean, I experienced some of this stuff like moving around as a kid. Like being in California, there was a bit more of this. Like it was chiller and it's also the types of people that you run into, right? Like if you get into like an artist community or something, um,
Mm.
yeah, the social dynamics are always. I remember being in Scandinavia and like especially going to clubs and stuff, and everybody is just wearing black and white or some variant, and I'm like, and then you go to a club in New York, and there's like 15 different types of clubs, and like some of them are just people are like they're parakeets. They're like the looks and the squads, and it's the whole fucking ordeal. And I'm just like, this is wild. And the music tended to be the same, but the like the social thing, I didn't get really a good view of it. But yeah, that's interesting. Like, so the personal sense of style is like it's like a badge. It's part of identity. Like in Southeast Asia, like how does that work? Like, how does the fashion stuff like come to be?
No, I think it's just an expression of being.
Okay, it's just an
Yeah, the
extension of who you
fashion
are.
style,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's just a kind of a, yeah, like whenever you travel in different countries, if you see there
Mm.
are so many different versions of people,
Yeah, yeah.
um, then you understand there is a sense, there's a freedom of being in this country. And then you go
Hmm.
to other places like in Sweden, you like things are a little bit tight in here.
Mm.
And be exactly whoever you want to be. But that's also very interesting. Like it's the freedom of speech, the freedom of like do whatever the fuck you want in Sweden is much higher than anywhere else in the world.
Mm,
Yet, because of the judgment, the social judgment,
interesting. Yeah.
you could be bullied in school for so like weird things that you wouldn't even. I've seen it
Yeah.
in movies, US, kind of similar, but and I never understood how that actually worked in
Mm,
even in Europe. You get quickly stumbled or kind of labeled with something,
yeah.
and then boom, you're done
Yeah.
for at least 5 years. And it depends on how you kind of personally overcome that. But here, there's a little bit of that, but um, yeah, just seeing people spending time with all kinds of people. Yeah, that was the biggest freedom I had in Malaysia.
Mm,
I could spend
interesting.
time with all kinds of people. And I'm like, that was the first lesson for myself as well, that I can sit and enjoy a good conversation with
Yeah.
almost anyone doing anything.
Yeah.
Um, and that kind of put me out of my the safe zone that your parents put you in. Like, these the type of people you should probably spend time with, these
Yeah.
scary
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, or they waste your time or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Here, it's good. I think Europe probably would be such a kind of a relaxing time for you guys if you ever do it. And Southeast Asia would be such a self-touring kind of a
Mm.
experience.
Yeah. I think that there'll probably be some period of this that we do abroad, and then that will probably give us enough information to like sort of look over where we've been, like what types of people we were and what types of people we were around, and then like sort of hone in on where we want to land. Like, so we're in the data gathering phase, I think. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, part of this is like we're bringing in so much information, exactly like you're doing with your fashion project. Like, you've got these years worth of information and there's patterns in it, and then you can sort of look at it from 30,000 feet to sort of see how you're developing. We're doing similar things with our journals and stuff. Um, like trying to figure out what is important in each of the places, and like without any plan, we're just collecting the information, like writing what feels right, taking pictures of what makes sense, I don't know. Yeah, without trying to like pull it into anything specific yet. So like it makes it easier rather than like we are going to this place for some specific purpose. It's like letting the purpose show itself to us without like being overt about it. Um, but yeah, I'd love to. I hope like next year, at least maybe after Christmas or something like that. Maybe after the New Year. I mean, we talked about coming out there if the COVID stuff makes sense, but we may like probably we have friends in France and Portugal and a bunch of places that people who can show us around and sort of give us the feel of things. Some people who've done the nomad thing, um, and then part of this is too like dropping into subculture networks where people are living sort of a little outside of the mainstream, if that even makes any sense anymore. Like, yeah, and then you start to understand how people are living like abnormally and be like, oh, I can do that. Because there's entire networks of people who are like figuring out how to do these things. Like in the United States, I knew they were out there. Like when I was younger, I hung out with a lot of musicians, and musicians, like, they're touring, they're traveling, and they don't have a lot of money. So they have to figure out how to travel and how to stay with other people and like hook each other up and stuff. And I prefer being in networks like this rather than just paying to be a place to some stranger that I don't know. I'd like to work out something, like, so that you can be embedded in a place. It's you get to see more of the world this way, like more of the place that you're actually in,
Yeah.
because you get to see it through people's eyes, and that can give you a feel of more of what the possibilities of being are like. Like, we're collecting more of those. Like, there are many ways that you can be in the world. The the highly legible ones, the ones that publish really easily, are just the ones that travel the furthest. But yeah, there are a billion ways. There are a lot of people around. So yeah.
Yeah. I used to do this with girls.
Hmm.
So wherever I go, I get into a short relationship, but then I would
Yep. Yep.
get the place, and they would
Well, you
show me
have like
around.
a local guide that you're like,
Yeah,
in a deep relationship with. It makes sense. I mean, and then she gets to understand your world. So it's a cultural trade. Makes sense.
sure.
Yeah.
Um, oh man, after doing that a few days ago, it's such a self-alignment kind of an experience where you drop all of the valuable things that you picked up
Hmm.
during the time that you kind of grew up, especially during the time of your like before 20s, your teenage years,
Yeah.
and all of those things that you had kind of difficulty letting go, objects. Like I think most designers have it. They tend
Oh yeah.
to, yeah, um, get some obsessions over some things, and that all makes sense much later in life. Like now I understand myself a lot more through doing this. Actually, let me share my screen.
Sure.
uh
Let me turn that on.
Man, the language in this tool is just not it's so corporate, just
What, the
easy.
Zoom? Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
the whole
they have what, like a billion people using the thing?
yeah, that's true. There are so many photos and screenshots and blah 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 that I dropped in here,
Where were you
and
storing these
all
before?
phone and
Oh well.
Dropbox. Yeah, I mean not organized if that's what you think. I'm super organized with how. Wait, how do we move this? All right. I'm super organized with the works thing.
Yeah.
Um, the mood board thing. But with
Hmm.
apps, like fuck. Now everything makes sense. Everything that I'm kind of collecting in terms of things that I find interesting all ended up being the same shades of colors.
Yeah, makes sense. You have
And
palettes. Yeah.
yeah, I mean there is a pattern here. Like from like some people are like, oh, you probably just pulled some of the pictures that the colors matches. No, it's not. I actually went through
No.
all of the images and I picked out the ones that I liked the most, and I wanted to dump some to bring some direction in terms of
Hmm.
what things to design. And all of them have the same texture, the same pattern, and then the same colors.
Hmm.
And there are references to so many things in my whole life. And then you see these colors, you see these shades, and then I try to kind of bring it down to like, in terms of color palette, this is what we are working with and nothing
Yeah.
else. And just a bunch of,
Warm
and then,
fall colors.
yeah, like see this is the same. Everything makes sense now suddenly. Like I know, I'm so happy that I know blue, like all the other colors are out
Yeah.
of my, I'm like, all right, great. As a designer, those are the things that I do not touch because for me, that doesn't bring any emotions.
Hmm.
Um, And every time I try to design something with those colors, I never built a close relationship with it. So I was just glad to kind of kick it out.
Yeah.
Even with client projects, every time we go towards this type of colors, it becomes a little bit personal. Now, a
Hmm.
lot of these small things make sense by just doing this simple exercise, which took an entire day.
Oh,
Um,
it took years and years of collection, and then one day.
and then it just made sense. I have
Yeah.
such a clarity in like who I am as a designer now.
Okay, let's
That
poke that. Like, so I've had experiences like this. I've made collections over time, right? And I usually do this in relationship to, especially when I was doing agency work, I would collect things that I like so that I could reference them and then produce things that they spark, right? It's a type of visual mood boarding, journaling, this kind of thing. Um, there's like a pretty consistent palette that would show up for me. Uh, like it looks like the the United States desert Southwest, but like a very particular version that's like off on the horizon. The mountains are purple, and then the sky is very blue, and then there's green in the foreground. All of the carbon made colors are this palette because I was like saturated by this thing. And it was something that was off in the distance, something that was unattainable, something that was far away, that was removed from me. And if I could get to there, then maybe I could understand more about myself. Um, and I wasn't able to work in this palette until I left that place because it was just it needed to be expressed or whatever. So um, yeah, I haven't kept track of like where my palette stuff because I haven't been doing as much like visual design work or whatever. I've been working in black and white a lot. Um, like and then my photography, there's a new thing there. There's like, I added motion and like stillness, no people, like, so you get these like patterns of things and I don't know what they're expressing. It's expressing some emotional quality or something that I'm trying to tap into. There's some narrative you could apply to it. You have to be careful, but it does move in seasons. It changes with like the patterns of who I'm trying to. Designers have that, like fashion designers have this. Like each season, they maybe are feeling something different. There's the manufactured version of that where it's tied to the supply chain and to, Vogue and all these other things, right? And then there is the
Yeah.
natural expression of a designer. So I'm curious, like when you're feeling into the this particular stuff, is there anything that is coming up that is like narrative wise, like that, like that the colors like speak to you in some way or the pattern? Yeah.
100%. And
Yeah.
there are references in everything in my life. And for me, it doesn't change. It's
Mm,
not seasonal. Like
yeah.
I've been collecting things since I was 14.
Mm,
Um, and I had to dig up some of the toys that I mean online trying to find them. And then
yeah.
now all makes sense. All of them are sharing the same type of mood, which is visualized by colors.
Mm,
I have some favorite places and favorite type of hotels too. And even the places that I pick to live in and I'm the most happy in, they have the same kind of color palette in them.
mm,
I'm just not comfortable or myself or kind of creatively active if wood color or kind of earth color, that brown color is not around me. When it's around
mm,
me, I feel home, I feel more calm, and um, man, everything makes sense. All of the things that I picked to buy, all of the things that I kind of um, suddenly leaning towards bringing them to my life, all just because of the visuals.
interesting. Yeah.
Very little about sound
Mm,
or story. It's just all colors in my life.
mm.
And a certain type of colors make me to like certain music, certain
Okay. Yeah.
artists.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, certain objects. I mean, this room and the reason that I'm all the carpet is red, and then all
Hmm.
of these lamps are kind of, you know, brown wood stuff.
Hmm.
And I loved two hotels the first time I came to Thailand. Found this really old, small but fancy kind of hotel. And I
Hmm.
just love being there. I always like try to find an excuse to stay in that
Hmm.
hotel for a few weeks. And it's just because of the earth, the woody, but then I didn't realize it at that time until now I've done this. I'm like, all right, so whenever I want to be happy, that's probably I need to find spaces that have these
Yeah.
colors. Um, so now I know like this river is very nice, but I'm probably that's not the type of surrounding that would
Mm.
unlock my full, I guess, not potential, but then it's the best way to optimize myself by just surrounding myself by certain colors. And I'm in the zone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there is definitely like a environmental. I mean, we're talking about it. Like part of where I'm at with this is, uh, we had this house in Oakland, and like, there's a fancier version of all of the stuff that we put there, but like, I had like pink couches and I like weird, like, but with, the sort of mid-century things, odd pieces that have some history to them. There's like some depth or craft to them. I like being around things that people made with like high skill,
Yeah.
that were maybe some antique stuff or whatever. And then Kristen, like partnering with her, like figuring out a way to be in an environment because she has little plants here. She likes to organize things in a certain way. And like I'm comforted by her, so I'm comforted by how she like sort of like she has a design sense too, like an interior design sense. Um, and so we got that house like dialed in pretty well. But it was stifling because it was the imagined like, and there's this beautiful backyard and like it's all curated and like artists built the house that I was living in so that like somebody thought about all the details of the thing. It was kind of quaint and magical. I like this, like a cozy in that sense. But it was for a period of life. And for a person that like I thought if I could try to be that, in that place, maybe that's where like security or safety or creative energy would come from, I don't know. Like I had some vision of the thing, accomplished that vision, and I'm like, oh no, this is this is not it
Yeah.
satisfies some part of me, but it's not everything, right? And
Mm.
this is where like moving, yeah, I decided to just drop all of my preconditions on this stuff altogether. But you can't do that immediately. Like, so there's this ebb and flow. Like, I'm like collecting a new palette, like a new style of ways of being in relationship to place and like color and sound and all of these kinds of things. And the first like practice there seemed to be like how can I get to know all kinds of different places? Like because people value like their environments for reasons that I don't understand. So I want to understand the meta understanding of how people value those things rather than
Mm.
having my personal taste dictate that because I know how to do that, right? But you have to go try that. You have to like build it up and some people they find their thing and then they can build it and they can invite other people into it. There's all kinds of different instantiations of this. I don't know, mine seems nomadic now. Like I like dropping like this house, like it's cozy in a certain way. It's like of an era, like probably the 1920s. Like it's gone through a few different hands. Um, there are probably no kids living in this place, whereas the last one we just came from, it was all about children and like a big communal area and like lots of stuff. It was like children proof. This place is for adults. It's for somebody to live here and think, and it's got all the gadgets and like the bathroom, the showers are all fancy, and like kids would break all this shit immediately. So like what is the difference? What is the type of person who lays out this place, right? What do they think? Like how am I related to them in preference and how am I not? So yeah, I don't know. That's all up in the air right now. It's really odd. It used to be like if I were to come into this place, half the shit would drive me insane. So I'm like, why would you put that there? Like, why is this like this? Now I'm just like, okay, I'm the person. I'm like, okay, this couch, it's beige. These pillows, that's fine. I don't know. So yeah, it's a weird. You can play with all this stuff, I guess. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh yeah. That's the thing, right? Like, I finally understand why I got a red couch when I was younger, or
Hmm.
why I'm doing this again, or why certain things I tend to wear them more, or
Yeah.
what get some places and not the other places.
Hmm.
Especially when I was looking around a bunch of places to rent a home for a year or two.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm like, it's just all fucking color references.
Hmm.
Um, But then now, okay, so now I understand how I think, what makes me feel home and what makes me kind of centered. And it's really
Hmm.
centered. It feels like you're fragmented in all of the other
Yeah. Yeah.
environments.
Yeah.
But then once you're in a place that you feel as part of you, an extension of you, suddenly become aligned, and then
Hmm.
such a good feeling to have. But then, okay, I have it. I know I have understanding for it. So I'm not just doing things without understanding or knowing them. Now
Yeah.
I know it. Now I need to learn to let it go. So I would go to a
Yep.
place where it's completely not aligned with how I would do things, or,
Yeah.
the colors make me uncomfortable or whatever. And
Hmm.
actually, these colors can make me uncomfortable. If there's like
Totally.
a big fucking blue chair somewhere, and I'm like, I like it, I enjoy it, but I can't stay more than an hour in this place.
Hmm.
Uh, but I have an understanding of it, and I let that go, be okay with everything.
Yeah.
Just like finding, taking, letting it go.
Yeah. 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 I mean, it's such a weird thing. Like nobody talks about this stuff when you're younger. I mean, luckily my mom has some of this, and the only way that she was able to express it was like through the relationship to music. She talking like, do you know about synesthesia? Uh,
Yeah,
yeah. So when I was younger, like she just talked about somebody who had synesthesia, and it was very clear that she also did. Like with particular types of music, she would put them on, and it would produce a field for her, and then like there was a color palette to the music. Like literally, when you talk about like the blues, there is a color palette that's associated with the blues, this kind of thing. Um, and I
yeah,
have this in spades. Like if I listen to certain types of music, my orientation to the types of things that I can produce visually changes. Um, like, if I listen to punk rock or something like this, I'm going to produce a very different piece than if I listen to something classical and then all of the possible genres in there. Yeah, so you can extrapolate that out into anything, right? Like, and some people have, like number, like they feel numbers, or they hear numbers, or they see numbers, in particular ways in their heads. And same thing with words, and same thing with felt sense. Like you feel the texture of something, and then that has a corresponding like color palette or something like this. There's all of these different like extrapolations of this, and I think artists a lot of the time have these sensitivities. They're like kind of psychedelic. There are things in your brain that are crossing that help you see the world in a particular way. And then you just re-express through those types of things to try and feel into what it's like being you, right?
yeah,
This gives you a particular voice, like because your sensibilities to the world in this sense expressed in the way that you can, like individually, and then offered to other people, can help them see a thing that they may not have seen otherwise. um, but it's tough doing that, especially if you're in an environment like you were talking about in Sweden, where that's not valued highly, or it's
mm,
valued in a different way. You can feel nuts because you're like trying to push towards a thing that like normative culture is like, we've cut that out because it's noise or whatever, right? And
yeah,
I definitely had this experience growing up over and over again. I'm like, what about this? And they're like, what the fuck is that weird nonsense? And I'm like, okay, well, let's lock that down into something that you can understand. So yeah, I think part of growing older and like being comfortable in like expressing those sensibilities, um, is like working with the fear of like being ostracized for having a natural proclivity towards these kinds of things. It's yeah, it's work. Like you have to find a stance that is true to you and is also expressive in a way that is true to the sensibility. Um, and that's different for everyone. So I don't know.
it's interesting where when you start digging deep into this. Okay, like one step is, you noticing, kind of, you notice there is a pattern, and then you dig a bit deeper and you're like, fuck, it's in everything.
Yeah.
And then the third is, I think my biggest realization was when I was 20, I mean, a couple of years ago. No, fuck, like 8 years ago. I'm like, fuck it, I'm a sensitive person. As a thing,
Yeah.
because it's such a it's such a mind opening, oh, kind of mind relaxing kind of an confirmation to make, where you go, okay, I am actually this person, let's just own up to it. And then by doing so, you kind of start realizing all of these other things that you are doing, and then why you are doing them in a certain way, and they're doing it. And then now, like with patterns and colors and everything, Emma, where does it come from actually? Because
Mm-hmm.
colors are references, and references are memories, and memories you can get to the roots of things. And it's
It's
probably
a path,
somewhere,
yeah.
yeah, 7, 6, 7 years old. And
Mm.
I was thinking before, and I'm like, fuck, like being a great parent is not like being, make your child, I don't know, giving them everything in terms of the path to the perfect education, or, the great environment, or blah, blah, blah. Well, great environment is one of them. But in the first 7 years of somebody's life
Mm-hmm.
shapes their entire being. And you can't change that. I mean, like some people say, I mean, you grow up, you can just do things. I mean, sure, you can tweak things
Yeah.
a little, but it's in your DNA, most of it. And it's in color kind of references too. Like now I know kind of the browns and the yellows and these kind of autumn looking colors
Yep.
are just the home,
Mm.
and all it's coming from, nothing else.
Yeah,
Just
I think
one.
in
Yeah.
well, you read about artists, and especially like sort of greater artists who find this, and then they learn to communicate with it. And how you communicate with it can be through different types of works, like different types of output. It could be fashion, it could be painting, it could be, any type of like expression. Um, and the working with that like material is a method to break free of that conditioning necessarily, right? Like because that
Yeah.
that early developmental phase, like it does lock patterns into you because, especially if there's a lot of trauma in that phase, right? Like there's a lot of like, depending on the environment that you were able to develop in, because the more likely that the environment is suited to like a sort of contained love, right? Like the child is able to play with different types of being, what they're interested in, what they, and then the parent is there to offer structure and guidance and ideally, but like there's a they're co-creating the person, right? It's not like you are going to be like this and you have to do this and like we've met those people. They're flipped out. They don't know how to do anything themselves because they've been told constantly exactly how to do everything. And then nowadays that exactitude, that certainty on how to be in the world doesn't work anymore. This is why everybody's losing their minds, because the thing that they were offered is not the pattern that exists in the world. And so the people who can go out and feel into it, it's scary to do this though, especially if you've never been taught. So it's about like creating a bubble of like security that is born of like trust that the person will become the person that they need to become. And if that there are varying degrees of success on that, obviously. Like the parent is doing the best they can, the kid is doing the best they can, and you develop like survival techniques, and then those survival techniques become conditioned thing, in like the Jungian model, it's like complexes. You're like worried about this and that. So artistry can like tap into those like sense memories from being younger, and then maybe express something that kid wanted to express but didn't have the resources or the environment to do it, right? And then working through like figuring out what needs to be expressed for that part of you can unlock like new avenues of growth, like because then it's gone, it's out, you've given it back to the world, right? You have processed that in some way. This is how I see this. It's a model that works for me. um, and it's a weird spiritual process a lot of the times. It's not rational. Like, why do you need to paint in brown? Because this thing that I saw when I was a kid, the landscape was like this, or the environment, or the room, or the whatever it is, and that has something to say, and then other people can probably tap into that something because their sensitivity may not be as potent as yours, but they have an adjacent sensitivity because we are all connected in this stuff, right? Like, and then for them, they don't have the ability to output this, but they can be, yes, that's what I've been feeling too, right? And so
Nice.
the more you can do of this, then there's another pocket of stuff. There's always another pocket. And like once you express that, and that, it's there's something else that needs to be talked to, that needs to be expressed. And that can be in an app, it can be in a company, it can be in a government, who knows? Like, but it is this like sort of tapping into what needs to be said. And then if you get enough of your stuff out of the way, you can start doing it for culture at large, I think. So, but yeah, it's this personal impersonal relationship to this material, and then figuring out like uh different medias to speak to it. I don't know. It sounds like fashion is one of those on ramps for you. Like, so it's cool.
Oh, I think, man, I'm so done with internet. Seriously. Um, it's such a meaningless saying as somebody who spent like 15 years into this.
Yeah.
Um, it's such a meaningless piece of artwork or work because it's so time limited
Yeah.
and it's so short for you to actually be able to develop anything meaningful or lasting. Yeah, nothing is fucking lasting. Like
Yeah.
imagine as an example of that is just like Clubhouse. Like what the fuck
Hmm.
happened there? Um, and now it's completely gone. Then there comes another wave, another trend, and it's just gonna be like this. And we are the designers of those software.
Yeah.
Um, so I need to come into the physical stuff. And yeah, I think fashion gonna be such a self, um, I don't know, revealing kind of an experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Than anything else I've done. And I hope it turns into something that I can slowly either sell or just let go of the digital stuff and come to the physical. I think tree drops is in a place that it can be automated. I found few really amazing designers.
Hmm.
I recently onboarded one more. I'm like, if I do this really well, I'm not going to be needed as much uh, as I need to be in order to just keep in it as a thing that I'm doing on a weekly or monthly basis.
Yeah.
Um, Aiden is completely separated from me. Compliment is more of advisory until we'll land a few clients, and we already started talking with clients. It's interesting. It's fun doing kind of business stuff where you go, all right, this is how things are operating in your industry or in the world. Let me add some of this that I've learned into it, and then boom, we have a new business. And then let's just go talk to clients. Would they pay for it? Yeah, it seems like they are going to pay for it. Then
Yeah.
great. Then we have a thing. Um, it's it's probably ego boosting, but then nothing is as more rewarding as just doing something physical. Just I had
Yeah.
just I look at the stupidest thing. Um, we talked about compliment and then we would do like free
Yeah.
t-shirts and give it away. Well, yeah, we did the design and then we got the t-shirts and I go like, all right, we need to size it up and then understand where to place the elements and the things that we designed for the t-shirts.
Yep.
And I go print like stupid fucking children stuff. Um, I printed out the papers, the pieces, and I'm
Hmm.
taping them on the t-shirt. And I'm like, all right, this needs to go here. I'm prototyping the
Yeah.
fucking
It's
placement of
mocking it
things,
up.
mocking it up. I ain't like, this was the highlight of my day. And and look at it. I'm like, okay, this thing needs to be here at an exact position and the inches away from the edges.
Yeah.
And this is the most fun I've had in the past week. This piece right here. I'm like, that's so fun. I want to do more of this.
Well,
And
you're
it's not
playing.
yeah, exactly. that
Yeah.
it's finally a play without rules. Because digital stuff, you became so good at it. You're like, no, but constraints, design systems, blah, blah, blah. Then
Yep.
you're like, this is the space you can play with. And there, we've designed it for a couple of months or weeks, and then we give it to the client and we roadmap or see, sure, we are developing this software for these companies, but it's not as influential.
Yeah.
And then another thing is, I was talking with Luca with like what makes a product successful, what makes a brand, and what makes all of these things. And I was talking about, I'm so done with software because, in order for one software to be adopted, the other one need to go. You cannot keep both, but you can have two brands of the t-shirt. You can have multiple, you probably have like multiple different
Yep.
shoes. You can buy one more, even though it's expensive, it doesn't cost you the other one. Um, and because of that, it's just a so much easier process of hopefully selling them or kind of sharing them, not selling them. I think with these products, it's less about selling and more about kind of sharing that experience or feeling. Because you always, with music too, and I think with clothes too, you probably notice it, like when you wear a certain piece, you suddenly feel a certain way.
Yeah.
That is timeless because it
I
never
mean,
goes away. It gets connected to your memory muscle, and every time you wear that, you behave a certain way. And then being a person who influences that type of behavior through
yeah.
products, isn't that the thing that we started designing in the first place?
Yeah. I mean, it's moving towards artistry. So, like, you
Mm-hmm.
remember I talked about hanging out with, I learned this from musicians first
Yeah.
because they would produce a piece of music. And like, I was lucky enough to have friends who I got to sit with them while they wrote music, and I got to see it be in its like infant state, and it was like nothing, and they're trying to find it. And then a couple times I was in like practice areas or whatever and just hanging out, like, because there's nothing else to do, and I love it. Like, I can be around musicians all the time, and then all of a sudden something comes out, and they're like, that's the thing. And then you
Yeah.
hear it for the first time, and you know that people will hear this over and like they will have a relationship to this, right? And then being it, like them pulling it together into a form and then presenting it to other people, right? And then being in the audience the first time that song comes up, and then everyone's like, that's what we've been feeling. And then there's this reciprocal, like, there's this relationship through the music to the audience and the band. They are all in this space that is representing through the participation and listening to the music and enacting the music, like something that is beyond what could be expressed like with language, like with words. um and then hearing that over and over and seeing it, how it develops, and your relationship to, like, I go back and listen to some of these songs because they're on Spotify and stuff now, and I'm like, it takes me back to these places where I had that perspective. And then you can hear it through these, and then you hear stories of other people who, because they talk to the band and like, this thing meant this to me. And you can talk to people who are in bands, and they have all sorts of stories, and it's always different because the person's like instantiation in the world is different than some other person's. So you're offering something for them to respond to, for them to like place in their story. And I mean, that's a very different thing than offering something hyper functional that solves a purpose, right? It is it is less rational, it is less functional, less useful, but it is equally important. And so the mentality around this stuff is more, I look at it as sacred. We talked about this last time. Like, what is, like, how can like you get closer to something that is expressing some truth in the world, and you
Right.
can't decide whether or not that's going to be, you can use design techniques and manufacturing techniques to increase the likelihood of popularity if that's what you wish to do, because you wish to have attention for it. Or there is a type of expression based on skill that you just let it, you are channeling what is there. And the way I think about this is it's already out there in the world. It's already out there being held in the like 8 billion minds that we have. You are just in a position to be sensitive to it, to give it life so that you can share it with other people. And like maybe 100 people have that sensitivity, maybe 1,000, maybe 1 billion, right? But that's not up to you necessarily. And some people have like broader sensibilities, which means that they, like Kanye, can put out this big fucking thing and everybody responds to it. But like,
Yeah.
fuck, I don't want that. That sounds terrifying to me. Like, but I would rather have like 1,000, or I've gotten up to like 20,000 people, and that's too many. uh, developing the relationship with the people who also feel into what you're feeling, like, because you're going to have to then mediate that. They're going to want things from you. They're going to, it's a now a relationship. So I'm working with all that stuff, because also you could manufacture it, but I think it's better to express it in some way that is like, I'm trying to find this place. Like, how do you engage with this work in a way that is truthful to the work and helpful in, like, sharing it is contributing to the larger understanding of what it is to be, right?
Nice.
That is
Yeah.
it's a gift. And to give yourself the gift to like to have this ability to be able to put this stuff out, like, money may come from that, and acclaim may come from all of that, but it's a byproduct of that initial, like, taking care of yourself by giving it out to the world. So like having barriers on this stuff is important somehow. I haven't figured all of it out yet, but that's how I'm starting to think about it. It makes it easier to work with the like really potent stuff, the stuff that's terrifying, the stuff that's exciting, that you feel like you can't put in the world, like, or whatever it is, that you wish you could get into the world in a way that people love, but that stuff is probably not what you think it is ever. it's it's always something deeper, like lower down, but you have to get at it by doing experiments. Like, okay, these palettes, let's get them out in the world, see how other people respond. It's a conversation in that sense. So I don't know, I'm all over the place with this, but yeah.
Yeah. Fuck. Uh, that exact sentence, I lost it. You
Mm,
said, this. I'm so glad we're doing this on recordings. Um, the entire fashion stuff is actually recorded. I'm recording
mm,
all of my calls now, looking for
nice.
somebody who can edit them for me, because it tend to be something that you spend a lot of time with.
Yeah.
Um, you said it's a lot easier, something along this line. It's a lot
Mm,
easier to share these, which is your truth of being that
mm-hmm.
people can relate to, that you can never accomplish with anything else digitally. I mean, with the stuff that I'm doing, like
Sure.
with 3 jobs, with OFC, or with INN, or now Complement.
Yeah.
Um, Physicals have this thing of, and sometimes with marketing, yeah, here's another thing.
Mm,
And I keep going around this marketing thing a lot. A lot of the things that we like. I was talking to Luca today, and I go, DJ Khaled, right? Or
yeah.
um, Salt Bay, or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Um, all of these people are known because of their marketing, not like Conor McGregor. I mean, he's not an amazing fighter. He is a fighter. He's probably
Yeah.
one of the good ones, right? But his marketing skills and being, okay, what do I mean with marketing skills? Being socially active without the fear of being judged. They are, they have all of that. And because of that, they are so socially active online
Yeah.
that, of course, I mean, some things you're gonna do or some things you're gonna say gonna take off and become viral. And once it's viral, because of your habit of just being overly active on these platforms, you can capitalize it. And if you can just understand how to wave these viral things, you're gonna become probably successful at what you are doing. So these people were able to kind of pimp the game, uh, while other like people like me is still trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And we run a bunch of experiments all the time on all of these different channels. Like with Dribble, we started sharing a bunch of in progress screenshots that is not made by a designer,
Yeah.
and then we're seeing the result of it. I mean, sure, it's like we start getting messages from designers how inspiring it is to see behind the scenes stuff, but it's not
Mm-hmm.
getting us enough likes to be seen by other people. So the number of people that are start following the account is getting less. We started getting questions, are you guys always design in black and white? Stupid, dumb questions like that. I'm like, no, those are early stages of the work. Then clients, yeah, potential clients have a different sense of the type of products that we design. We're like, all right, that's we're probably starting to hurting our image as a kind of a premium design agency. So there needs to be a balance of in progress work and polished work. So you just find
Mm-hmm.
that balance so we can share both. Um, on Twitter, it works well, and then we're trying to figure all of these things out. And then I think we did a lot of research over the past couple of weeks where we finally understood, all right, Twitter is a place for individuals to become successful, get their ideas, get their thoughts, get their story out, but then it's not a great place for companies to grow. Not at all. None of the companies that we thought are doing well on Twitter are actually doing well on Twitter. Their founders are doing well on Twitter.
Yeah.
And because of that, company is a little bit more active. But then on the other hand, companies are doing really well on Instagram, even though it's not a visual company. It's just
Mm.
a company.
Yeah.
Uh, but the engagement they're getting on that is much higher. And then it's depressing to look at the numbers on TikTok and how much companies are actually thriving there. And because of it, all the other social accounts are thriving. But um, becoming a creator and then understanding how to share the work as you are doing it. And then, I don't know, blueprint would be um, designing something that connects it to your roots. Then you can
Mm-hmm.
have a very unique sense of style that sets you apart from others. Um,
So let's dig into that some, like, because you have the playing field of social media, right? Which has like inherent politics that you can't control, right? Like all of these platforms, you're at the whim of however the algorithm works, whatever is popular to help their particular like way of making money, which is usually advertisement based. And if you aren't in alignment with that, then the likelihood of your easy success is lower, right?
yeah,
So it's back to if you are weird and you are weird in a way that is not normative for the situation, then it is going to feel stifling, like you can't get ahead, right? I don't play those games. Those games are stupid. I will always lose those games. Um, so it comes down to finding games that you can play that you can succeed at without doing a lot of work, right? This is my policy on this stuff. Or the work that you're doing like helps some group of people or helps you express in a certain type of way that can get truer to your voice. Because the truer your voice is, the more people will respond to it. And if you are trying to express your voice in a platform that doesn't give two shits about your voice, then you are doing yourself a disservice. You are wasting your time. You are wasting their time. Like you are
nice.
potentially making somebody rich and making yourself bummed. And then the people that want to find you can't. It's just a mess, right? So, and for some people for whom that works, that's great. That's cool. It ended up working out, but that usually isn't the case for most people because it's a zero sum game. Like there is only so much attention, and if you are competing for that attention, you are constantly fighting everyone else to try and get the top spot. And I think that works that are creative are best in collaborative environments where you can work with other people, you can partner with things, you can build each other up, this kind of thing. That's an aside. So it's like it's finding like what are you trying to like what do you value and how can you best produce an environment where like you can have experiments that will
Nice.
help you find your voice, right?
Yeah.
Like, and sometimes those that somebody has built a place like that. Like early Twitter was like that for me. I loved it. Like there were a ton of writers out there and they had an environment where they could easily use an application on every device to send little bits of text to each other. And I could rapidly test out copywriting ideas with people. And it was a game, right? Because like I would just try out different mimetic devices to see like, does that hook people? Does that make them excited? Does that delight them? And then I had a group of other people who were also doing this. We were playing together, right? And
Oh,
then,
like, really, in that sense?
yeah, that's what early
Or
Twitter was for me.
wow,
What's that?
actual copywriting.
I mean, most of the people that I met were copywriters in their day jobs. But what we were doing was we were playing with the skills of copy, like in jokes. And, we would take a product like an Apple product and then rewrite the copy and then see if you could get laughs or see if you could get them to, whatever. There's lots of little types of games that you can play with the skill without it being professional, right? Like it's just it's the same thing that Dribble kind of did this. The idea was that here's a place that designers can play. Like you can show off what you might do if you had the opportunity to do it for like a fake client or whatever. Like there's room for these environments where you can use the skills of your craft, but in a way that is not directly associated with capital or marketing, right? Um, so these like playful environments where they're adjacent to the work, but they're allowing you to explore, right? And then in that, sometimes what happens is people are able to play in a way that is suitable to them, and then they can develop a voice that they can go out and put into the world, right? But it's become a destination where everything matters and like fucking likes and it's a system now. Like and you can win or lose and then you are fighting upstream with an algorithm all the time. When it was just a list of people, there were social norms like don't post too much because people won't follow you, you know, post something of a quality that is engaging to the audience, right? Like there's all these different types of things. Um, Nowadays I'm trying to figure out like what is the type of environment that I want to hang out like in online. And if it doesn't exist, then I have to start making it. And if I don't necessarily know what that environment is, which means that I just need to put something down and get information back and then start to adjust. And then the closer I am to expressing in a voice that is true to me, the easier it is for me to do that all the time. I don't have to sit and try. Like it's because like there is a conversation now, and if people who value that voice start showing up, and then you can interact with those people, the thing sort of works itself out, right? Like you can start experimenting together in relationship. Like that's the whole point, to meet people and to build things together. And you can have different roles in that environment rather than like having a playground that you go into and like here's all the fucking tools and like here's the rules on how to play. And if you don't do it, you're not going to succeed. And fuck you, who cares? Because we're a giant company, whatever. Anyway, so there's there are yeah, how do you build your own sandboxes? Like it's harder. Like how do you and find other people who want to build a similar thing, who value a similar thing, and how can you grow that stuff together is kind of where I'm coming from on this. Um, yeah, and then like the you know Conor McGregor's and they just happen to be in the right place with the right skills with the right environment, right? And then they can continue to do their thing. That's great. So, but that there's only a few of those people. The likelihood that you're going to end up becoming one of those people is so shrinkingly low. So rather than try to emulate that, I think that it is better, especially for creatives who are creators now, as everybody's calling them, who have like some ability and some skill that they developed over time. Find the things that you do well that you enjoy, and then like that you can show up every day and play with, and then share the byproduct of your play and share how you're doing it. And like not and like don't schedule yourself, don't program yourself to do this all the time because you'll take the fucking fun out of it. Like how can you play in a way that is fun, that it is also inclusive, so that people will come and play along? Because if those people aren't playing along, then you're going to have to do it of your own accord. The energy has to come from you and the money that you make and all this other shit. But if you spread it and like you enable other people to play in the environment, then you get to do it together. It costs a lot less, and you have people who understand what you're trying to do that will help you like find your particular voice, and then you can help them find their voice. There's this collaborative, it's back to the bands. You're in a band together, you're playing together, and then you're offering it to an audience who then loves it or doesn't love it or has a communication with you anyway. So there's this is how I'm trying to move it away from marketing, which you are setting up something that is in relationship to market. That's why it's called marketing. Like you are
Yeah.
trying to communicate in the terms of the market, which is stifling. Like because there's a lot of stuff that goes out beyond market. Like there's a bunch of stuff in the world that matters that market can't see. So get to that stuff, and then it is more relational. It's more interpersonal. It is harder to value, but there is value that can be captured in the long run in a way that is suitable to the continuation of play. Like this is so anything that is strictly marketing, like I don't know. I try to cut it out. Like, don't do any marketing. The only marketing that I like to do is to explain how things are being done, sharing how I am coming up with this stuff, how we are working together on it. And then like it's invitational. Here's what we're doing. Do you understand what we're doing better than we do? Because then that's an opportunity for a conversation, and that conversation helps me understand what I'm doing and may help you understand what you're doing. And then the byproduct of that is something that is better than we could do by ourselves, because the market likes to separate everybody. So you do your own thing and then you fight. I don't want to do that. I want to do things with other people that may not be at the highest caliber initially, but if you can do it you can spread the load amongst other people, you end up like emerging something that you couldn't have gotten to by yourself. Anyways, yeah,
Relate OS.
what it is.
Yeah. Man, these things that we are making that we see the world through. So eye-opening and so
Hmm.
limiting at the same time.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's the thing that like none of the like design schools and all this other stuff and the design, it's all when it's all market centric, they don't talk about how like psychological and spiritual this work is. Because like if you try to boil all the art out of it, all of the stuff that matters to people, then you just end up with like a design system that is repeatable and standardizable, and it's awful. it's it, you know like it's useful and it is necessary, right? In But it cannot express the whole of what like a particularly sensitive artistic person needs to share in the world, right? So like finding the media and mediums to be able to get to this like core stuff that only you can get to, and then you need help in doing this too. Like being able to invite other people into that process helps you potentially do that design system a million times better, because like the need for the design system shows up because you have grown something that requires it, rather than manufacturing a need and then building it and it's empty. It's, I don't know. There's some different, you get to the same place using the same tools, but there is a communal like necessity for it. And then when you're building like from a place that the need is grown rather than manufactured, everybody is more stoked to work on it. Like you don't have to sit down and be like, all right, we've got a plan on how to do this and fucking bring 30 people in and we've got to raise all this money because it doesn't want to exist in the world. Like you have to fucking like build this crazy machine to try and it's, I don't know. It's again, that's good for certain types of things. It's just I think for craft and for art, there are better ways of going about it. Don't know.
I mean, the thing that you're working on is so aligned with everything you're about that it just makes perfect sense to spend kind of your entire life bring this to reality.
It's the ideal. I mean, like
I mean,
it,
isn't it because the purpose of this whole thing is just finding that thing that you wanna that you're like, I would happily work on this my entire life.
sure.
Um, almost. Um, and I think that's the most peace you would get from work when you find that type of work where you go, this is aligned with everything I want to accomplish, and I can start it now. I've figured out a way to do it with other people, and you just one step at a time expanding it. Um, it's I guess if you would ever enjoy a process of doing something, that would be this, like what you're doing. That process must be so enjoyable. Like just creating that day, creating that input field to do a post
Hmm.
on, yeah, the joy of that was so probably
Yeah,
rewarding. Yeah.
it's so silly because we know how to do that individually. We could build this thing, but it came of like the thing, like the interface that we're working on right now is growing out of what we know together. We can
Yeah.
only go as far as what we know together. And like if
Yeah.
we can't communicate what needs to be built, then it can't get built. Like it's not like I'm going to go off in a like hole somewhere and then build the whole thing and then bring it back and like, look, I've made this amazing thing. I go as far as I can go, like without like abstracting a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, what do we do here? And then the group knows what to do because we're sharing in this thing together. We're keeping it alive together. Like and it there's no money. There's not like we're coming together because we wish to see this thing exist. And so it's exciting to come back together because we get to move it forward one more step. It is so slow. But like when we get something that like we'll do things like I'll sometimes design something that I didn't know existed because
Nice.
I'm sitting there with them and they're like, put that there. And I'm like, obviously, but I would
Yeah.
have never done it. Never. It's the most fun. And this is with a group of people who are not designers. Like, I'm just sort of putting a face on it. If we can do this with other designers, like the patterns that we know and this kind of thing, we can move it forward a lot faster, I think. Um, yeah, so it's both, it's extreme joy on one hand, like it's exciting, and it is horrible on the other hand, because
What's our
you have to let go of all of your preconditioned understandings of how these kinds of things work.
right?
And part of it is that, like, we talked about this before, like the identity of being good at something and being valued for something and all of this stuff, right? These guys don't care. They just want me to show up and play, right?
Yeah.
Like, and if something comes of that that is fun or expressive of what we're trying to accomplish, then the group did it. I didn't do it. I just showed up with a skill that I have worked on for a while. And does it best express what we are trying to accomplish? Does it help us move forward the thing that we are trying to understand? Does it help express the larger goal of what we're trying to do? Because ultimately, what we're trying to do is not produce a single interface. We are trying to produce the idea of the type of thing that you could build with this thing. It is just an example. And the way I look at it is I'm producing the like worst example possible because the people who are going to show up later are going to produce things that are so much more creative than I ever could. So what I'm trying to do is give them like a jumping off point. And then, part of why we're recording this stuff is to show how I'm thinking about it. So somebody could go and sit there and watch it and be like, that's ridiculous. Do it like this. So, right? So like it's a conduit to let further creativity take place. So that's what's exciting. Like but my ego is like, I've got to be the best at this. I have to win this. I have to get accolades. People need to love what I did or whatever. All of that stuff is like bouncing around this insecurity, like that I need that to be known in the world. Why do I want to be? I don't want to be known. Every time people know who I am, I flip out. So like, so it's wrestling with that. And then so if I do want to be known in the world, who do I want to be known by, and what do they know about me? So, like, do they know that I'm a fantastic designer and I can make things that make a lot of money and people like to use? That's great. That's fine. Or would I like to be known as somebody who can drop into a group, work a complex problem, and then produce something of value to a large swath of people who then can do the same thing themselves? And like, can I not be known for any of that and still do it because it's the most satisfying thing in the world to do? Like, so it's moving from this, like, it is moving to a place where like the active participation in playing with this stuff is pushing my abilities and my understanding of the world. And then I get to share this with other people so that they can do the same thing. I don't know. So yeah, it's finding I think about it as a virtue engine. Like, is there something that every time I sit down, like I am enacting virtues that I personally ascribe to, and then I am putting them into the work, and then the work comes back and allows me to do this again and again. Because if that's aligned, then it becomes an engine of development where the hardest part of this thing is the friction of the like psychological stuff that is stopping me from doing this. Scarcity mindsets, because it requires a type of abundance. I have all of this stuff to give away. So then it's like, how do you figure out how to give it away in a way that it'll, like you can continuously do this? Like, rather than how do I build something for which I can put out into the world that it will bring resources back to me so that I can build more stuff and bring resources back. It's a different engine. It's based on a similar principle, but the output is a lot easier when you're just like, I've got all of this stuff to do. What is the best way to express what I'm feeling right now into the thing? And how can that best like how can I be a better partner to the group in doing this? Like, what do I need to learn to do that? Because then you're more compatible with any type of project. It is like a universal model of partnering with people, which means that if there's a project down the line that is less like about building software, I now have like a sort of universal model of dropping into a group and then offering what I can offer by listening to what the group needs. So I don't know. There's all these like sort of side skills.
Um, I mean, if you share the entire thing transparently, everybody would have their own understanding of who you are. You kind of give them everything there is to know about you, and then they make their own, you know, image of
Well,
you. You
yeah.
can't control that.
No.
But man, recently I kind of learned why I'm so good with building design teams,
Hmm.
and so many designers like to work with us. And why am I so horrible to do the same thing with mm, poof, managers?
Hmm.
Anybody that I'm like, here, run this business or like this, company or team or whatever. And I go, insecurity.
Hmm.
Because boiled down, I know design in and out,
Yeah.
product design, software design. So I know. So when you talk to me and I see you making mistakes, there is a patience there because
Yep. Yep.
I
Yep.
know it. I know how to go out of it. But I know the base is good because the people that I'm bringing on are from the work that I've seen from them is good. So it matches. Check. You can come in and work with us. Um, I don't have the same thing for managers, marketers, these people that we are hiring now. So I tend to probably hire too much based on potential
Yeah.
because I don't have any body of work that I can go judge your current state with. Um, Designers, I'm like, what's your last project? Send me a fucking screenshot and I can like, I know you're a designer or not, and then we go hire you based on a screenshot. At least for a test project, and then we know after 1 week. But with any other role, it's just so difficult. And my patience just goes lower and lower depending on how
Yeah.
much I know about that role. Um, and I
Hmm.
still haven't been able to create, like with the marketing, we have this person, Vivi, she used to be a teacher. Um, I'm like, she can definitely do marketing for RFC, like teaching people how to use our products, and she would do really well. Um, So I'm doing a bunch of these experiments. We are trying a bunch of different things. I'm like, all right, this is fun. So the work is fun. This is fun. They grow much faster. There I go. For whatever reason, I'm expecting a lot of things from this other person,
Yeah.
and they are not meeting their expectations. Let's just check why I have those expectations. Probably because I also don't know if this thing gonna play out, and I don't know the exact playbook of getting it done. So I'm like, my expectations is here. So I'm making the work not fun. It's not fun for him. It's not fun
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
And then it's just, all right. So I understand kind of what I'm doing. I'm just talking out loud to
No,
myself.
it's good.
Sometimes happens during these calls. All right,
Yeah.
go. I just need to do the exact same thing, the exact same attitude that I have with designers, with the other roles that I'm hiring for, and then
Hmm.
figure out experiments, things that we can do with some time constraints applied to some areas. And I was like, all right, it worked, great. It's a process. That's how we do with experimentations over here
Yep.
with marketing,
Yep.
operations, or sales. Um, yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. How still some things kind of click for you? Because
You
I'm
have
like,
to.
yeah,
You just have to bang your head against it a bunch of times and get frustrated, and then like at a certain point, I think part of growing older, part of wisdom is this approach is not going to work. And I don't know what approach will work because you don't know what you don't know. So do you have like what you just described is creating an environment where you can experiment together with like a limited experiment, something very small, so that you can get more information to know how to move forward. Like
yeah,
it's it's just don't put expectations out on goals that you can never reach, because the number of steps to reach that goal, if you have to like try and orient to it, this is operating in uncertainty, where if the goal state is unknown, all you can do is move forward in small, like sensing the environment in small ways so that you have a better view. And if you run yourself into a cul-de-sac, that's fine, you just back out and try something else. But that cul-de-sac is information, like, oh, that over there doesn't work and here's why, and we can talk about that. And then when you do have a process and you can build on it, it's this is how we're kind of doing this. as a group, we don't know how to do any of this. We know how individually how to build some of these kinds of things, but like with the Web3 stuff, there are no pattern libraries out there. Nobody's done, like, some people have done it, but a lot of people have done it for purposes that are not our purpose. They're building like financial instrumentation. And that the goal of financial instrumentation, there are patterns in how the software and how the community stuff works. But if we did that with our thing, then it would steer it too close to just being a financial thing. And we have to
Mm.
figure out something that is more important for social technologies, right? So you can pull from that, but ultimately, like, you have to throw it away and then feel into what is best to do next, right? Like, and the group of people that you have, the more that you trust each other, the more that you trust that these people can sense into the world and do the thing that is right to do next, and then go do the experiment, and then trust that you can come back and talk about it. Like, okay, what did we do here? How did it work? Did this work? Did that not work? Did you have fun doing this? Where are your frictions? Like, is there something mental that you're running into? Is it like an insecurity thing? How can we create a group of people that can feel out into the world that are secure together? So like, because like, like, there is definitely something, if we were to work together, I have insecurities that you don't have, and vice versa. And so for things that like you might flip out about, I'm like, oh, that's easy, just do this. And you're like, no, I don't know. And be like, well, think about it in this way. And they're like, okay. And then you go do it, and then that insecurity becomes lessened because you have had exposure to it. It's exposure therapy, right? So like for Kristen, like, she has an understanding of like working with larger bodies of information and knowledge, which flip me out. And it's not because I can't do it, it's because I don't know how to think about doing it, right? And so
Mm.
having people around you that are willing to look at these things, and you're sort of agreeing that you're all playing, you're just goofing with it. Like, it's just an experiment. And if it doesn't go right, then that's information. Like, this is, the world works like this all the time. We're in uncertain times. And so the only way to operate in uncertainty is to acknowledge the uncertainty. We don't know. And so, how do you then design around not knowing? Small experiments, actively participating, taking care of each other in the process, right? Like, and if somebody gets out ahead of themselves, be like, no, just do less. Do a smaller thing that gives us, these kinds of things. So, yeah, but if you continuously do this, it compounds. And what compounds too is the nature of the trust in the system, so that you can do more with less. I don't know. I'm also talking out loud to myself.
Best therapy.
Yeah.
I feel like the best growth hack is just finding those people where you can talk about problems openly. And
Hmm.
a lot of the times you're just answering yourself loud. Ah, that's how it was. I had
Yeah.
it always. It just needed a channel to come out.
Yeah.
Um, and um, and yeah, man. If this thing, and I always wondered, like if this thing would scale, as
Mm.
in, what would happen if more founders would do this?
More like these kinds of conversations, or these kinds
Yeah,
of, yeah.
this
I
kind
mean,
of.
I think that groups of founders who are doing this are probably like significantly more successful in their endeavors,
Yeah,
because they are they are having a relationship with reality. Like, large groups of investors and stuff do this. Like, this is where like you get things like the, what is it, the Bridgestone, is it Bridgestone,
yeah. Bridge.
Bridgewater, yeah. Yeah, like, he's got all these principles and radical transparency and stuff, and they are holding themselves accountable to the actions that they're making. It's very quantitative, right? But like, there is the qualitative version of this, which is where we are sharing our perspectives on the world, right? And then responding to each other based on what that like sort of sparks in us. Like, here is my understanding of how things work. And then here's your understanding of how things work. And then so these sharing of perspectives, like, oh, I never thought about that. Or half the time when we're talking, I'm like, I have been thinking about this for 10 years, but I have never said it out loud. And like, do I know that this is true? Or have I just been acting based on thinking that this is true without relating it to anybody else? So like,
Yes.
and if you can get into a place where you're honest about how you are interacting with the things that you're trying to work with, and other people have also run into these problems because they're doing similar things but maybe in adjacent areas, then you're able to compare notes. And if you can let go of your preconditions, or if you can't, ask for help on how to think about it, then you know the group can offer the ability to give you a new way of thinking about it that might be in alignment with a way that you can experiment without flipping out. Because a lot of this time it's we are in such unknown territory, and the purpose of entrepreneurship, the purpose of doing this stuff, is to grow. There is no other reason to do it. You were to to help you like fulfill the type of person that you need to be in the world, so that you can create an abundance that you can give to other people so they can do that. That's the point. Like, because it's easy to get rich if you have these kinds of skills, but who fucking cares? Like, then it's responsibility. Then you have a pile of money that you need to worry about. So, better to do this as a process of growth so that the money that is coming in can allow other people to also do this, and you can build together so you can know together. Like, which means that you are now leveraged to get into areas that you would never be able to get to by yourself because you have this circle of people. So ultimately, I think the people who can figure out groups like this are going to be wildly more successful, just in a strictly numbers game, but more importantly, in a like spiritual sense, because you are tapping into the things, into the stuff that people need to. Like, this is the whole point of being human, is to relate to each other in these ways. We have just chosen this style of like communicating our own demons. So I don't know. There's an art to it.
Yeah. No. There is a sense of clarity at the end of these calls usually. Sometimes, other times it's just like panic triggering kind of
It's good.
experience. Yeah, it's kind of um, there is an information in that as well. Um,
Yeah.
but or was it the other day they go, I don't know where I read this. Happiness is peace. We believe or we were taught that happiness is pleasure, and there is nothing more
Yeah.
mind shaking for the, I don't remember the exact word,
Yeah.
as extreme pleasure. So we are just living to find our peace. And I feel like this is a very peaceful type of conversation, which brings happiness.
I mean, it affords what we're doing here, or trying to do here, I think, is getting closer to like a clear view of reality for
Right.
ourselves,
Yeah.
and developing a relationship with reality. A love for reality is how you develop wisdom. And it sucks. It's hard. But there is a spiritual pleasure in that pursuit. So like, but it is not the point. The point is, the pleasure is not the point. It is a byproduct of living well, of
Yeah.
like moving towards the good in the Platonic sense, right? So yeah, like trying to chase pleasure, and it's hedonistic. You'll never catch it. You'll get glimpses of it and it'll go away. But like, the ability to do this and show up fully, like as your like a self that is truer. Like, I don't know.
Uh,
Yeah.
Anything that I kind of approached from an experiment sense, because yeah, oh, it's I don't know when we talked about this, you go, it's impossible to jump into the future for this product, the Web3 thing.
Yeah.
You kind of need to take a step, one step at a time, and then figure out, all right, we've arrived. What's next? And anything that I try to force a certain future, it always brought unhappiness, almost immediately, actually.
Hmm. Yeah.
Uh, and I like so dearly enjoy all of my design calls with the
Mm.
designers. It's just such a fun session. Let's just sit down and figure this thing out.
Yeah.
And just a lot of conversation, a lot of references, a lot of jumping around, a lot of like tapping each other on the shoulder and like this is good. Um, and co-thinking and co-creating is just it's just fun. Fuck. Like all the management calls,
Yeah.
all the sale call, uh, oh, all of the other calls, I just really, they're just so mind bearing.
Yeah.
Only because of the approach. It's just like,
Yeah.
did you got the result? No, fuck. It isn't like let's figure this out. It's just to do a bunch of experiments and then see which one works. And we are both we. I mean, I usually come in as in, oh, well, I'm an experienced one. I should probably know the answers, but I don't know. You don't know. It's such an obvious thing to know,
Yeah.
and then I get upset because of this such simple fucking.
Hmm.
I don't know what to call them even. And I'm like, why can't I just tomorrow wake up and I'm like, um, straight up, none of us know what we are doing. Just putting it out there.
Yeah.
And you need to just experiment with one thing at a time. Anybody who understands what experiments to try first, they should be rewarded because most people don't turn on that part of their brain. They're like, oh, I'm stuck. What should we do?
Yeah.
Figure it out. Like just think about I probably wouldn't take that long. Think about a bunch of things that you could try out. But then that comes from a way of thinking that I've kind of come to see that most people don't have that activated. Designers have it because of that fuck a problem. Well, let's just figure out how to solve it. We just find some references, we go there. But that the same process applies to any other problem in, operations, marketing,
Yep.
managing, sales. We don't know what we're doing. What are they doing? Do we like what they're doing? We can try that. Nothing hurts. Just try for 3 days. Give it a time constraint, and then we make a decision after that. And then work. It didn't work. All right, then yeah, it worked. It's a process. Then just repeat it and then optimize it. Tomorrow, I just want to wake up and I'm like, all right, everything is experiment. Let's just give ourselves a deadline. We need to figure this thing out before this, and then here's like 4 or 5 experiments that we can play with first, and then just pick your favorite and run with it.
Yeah.
And
There's the
then just
skill of designing good experiments.
yeah.
So like
That's all.
what like, and then experiments are playgrounds. So what is the best playground for the type of experiment that you're trying to play with so that the people can play? It's back to that parenting thing. If you give them a place of love that they know that they can fuck up, then they'll
Yeah,
go fuck up. And some of those fuck ups, they're learning, they're figuring it out. And so part of what I've seen in this process too is help create the experimental playground. That's part of what the role of a designer can do. Like give people a place to play. Like it's also environmental design. It's like interior design, right? There's a connection to that. And then part of what your role is to not show up as the boss, not show up as the leader. Like I show up, I think about this, I'm a student here. I bring a pad and a notebook and like, all right, go. Like I'm gonna sit here and I'm gonna learn from you because I don't know what I'm doing. You teach me. Like you have a better understanding of what's happening here in this environment. I have not spent as much time in this environment you have. So like, okay, when you do that, why are you doing that? Just ask them. Like what makes you like, why do you think about it in that way? And I'm like, oh, I didn't understand that that's how that works. Like, I'm learning how they see the world. Like, programmers, organizers, developers, marketers, like social workers, they all know things that I don't know. And like, if I come in there and I'm like, well, it can be like this, but at a certain point, like, I have a better understanding of how they know, so that I can be like, I can start to test like theories. Like, okay, so I know that social work kind of works like this, and I know that engineering kind of works like this. If you stick those together, will that work together? And then you ask both people, and they're like, yeah, but it would probably work like this. That's a bad idea, but this one's a good idea. So just give them fuel. Just be dumb. Like, this has worked really well for me. Like, I learned this from Kristen. Kristen is phenomenal at this. She just takes her first stab at the idea, and like, based on what she understands, and then the experts or the people who have a better understanding will just do it better. She's like, okay, next one, next one, next one. She's just moving things along. She doesn't need the credit. The credit is in everybody working together well. So,
Nice.
like, how can you facilitate? How can you bring that person who you know has good ideas, but they don't know how to talk to this person? Like, and part of that is learning how these people think and creating an environment where you get to watch them work. Oh, I love it. If I can sit in a room and watch people work, like, I learn so much so quickly because they're doing their fucking thing. And you're like, oh, and half the time you don't know what the hell's happening. Just like, why are they thinking about this way? Why? Because my design routines are running. I would do it like this. I'm like, just calm down and listen. Just listen to how they're doing it, because there's always validity in how they're doing it if you trust them as people to operate in the world well. And like, that's trusting your instinct on people. So yeah, I don't know. Anyways, this is a work in progress, but it's been paying dividends. I've been learning a ton about how people think about the world, and then this gives me a broader palette to play with, because there are
Nice.
these types of thinking that they're like design thinking, they're like engineering thinking, they're like, but they care about different things in different ways. And if you can stick those together, that's what like meta design feels like. I don't know. But yeah, building, I mean, the experimental thing is the place to start though. We all don't know what the fuck we're doing. Just so let's play. And then what comes of the play can be the fruit for further play. That is the point of the game, to continue to play. And then, you put boundaries on it if it has necessities for money and stuff. So, and people will knock down your door to come play with you if you do this, because they'll tell their friends, well, this is what we do every day. Like, fuck, can I do that every day? Then you don't have to recruit. You have to not, you have to, you have to choose who gets to come through the door.
I mean, designers are really like that.
Yeah.
I wish the other members were exactly the same, because it's not easy to hire with other roles. And yeah, experimentation. What makes us successful in what we do in the design is exactly what makes us not successful in the other areas, because we don't do that in the other areas of our work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it needs to be holistic that way. Like, because the styles of work that you have across your organization need to be compatible. They need to be able to speak the same, like, collaboration language. They don't need to do the same things in the same ways, but they need to interoperate together, the same mentality. Like, we are a people that come together, and we are not afraid to be wrong, and we develop expectations in this way. Whatever that thing is. And if you have something that's working from design, it won't work exactly the same way, but you're boiling it down to the base principle, which is like, it's sort of collaborative exploration.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
yeah, everybody can do collaborative exploration. Like, certain types of work lend themselves to doing that naturally, because it's the only way you can design well. But I think it can be applied broadly across all types of people, because it's just playing, it's just goofing around with each other, and then taking that seriously though. Like, okay, we've learned this. How can we do it better next time? how can we then share what we've learned with the rest of the people in the group so that they can do it better? And like then you get a shared culture of doing this. I don't know.
Collaborative exploration. I just wish there was a process for how to experiment, because I think that's the biggest thing that I teach every single person we get into the door. And that's the thing, right? The period that it takes them to understand how that thing works
Mm-hmm.
indicates whether that's the right person or not for us.
Sure.
Because some people like, why is it so difficult to just come up with ideas to try instead
Mm-hmm.
of being stuck? Like anything is fine. Like there is no, because with social media marketing, like we suck at it. We've been sucking at it for years. You can't make this suck more.
Yeah.
So try whatever. Um, and then don't try the same thing for too long. There are some rules I probably should just make it. And I'm like, there's an ebook, how to
Mm-hmm.
experiment at work um, the right way, like the cliche,
Yeah.
like a profitable way of experimenting at work is a
There you
rule.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the truth of that stuff is that like there are some repeatable things, but in an uncertain environment, you need to come up with bespoke experiments that are that understand where you are to the degree that you do and how far you need to move ahead. So like and that changes every time you do a new experiment. Like because change is the constant. Like everything is changing all the time. Like if you try to keep things steady state and controlled, your model of reality, it's just a map, will start to move away from reality. And the only way to have a better understanding of reality is to encounter it over and over and over again in a participatory, exploratory way. So like you're training an adaptable, like creative method of exploration, of experimentation. So like you run into a friction, right? This is how I see like just do as much work as you can, like and usually pick like we've been doing this process where uh we pick like a laughably easy thing to do. Like there's five of us and we're like we're going to put a form and a button on a page next time.
Yeah.
That's it. And then what happens is we have the momentum. We know we can do that, but we don't know how we're going to work. All of the stuff about working together, the psychology is the hard part. How do I trust you? Am I going to do the wrong thing? Like, and all of that. Get rid. How do you get rid of all of that so that people have come together to make something together? Right? Pick something that's very easy to make, and then somebody will do this, and somebody will do that, and somebody, and then all of a sudden you have that, and now you have a fruitful place where you've accomplished something that you can do the next small thing, and the next, and then that thing will get more and more complex, and let the group figure it out. Okay, so what I do is like, what should we do? What now? And then we'll sit there quietly, and then somebody's like, what if we did this? And that move, I'm like, okay, yeah, but that I don't know. I think this is more important. And then you sort of haggle it out, and then everybody wants to move it forward. So an idea will appear. Sometimes it comes from one person, sometimes it comes from another, sometimes it comes from the group. And then you agree to do that, you go off and do that, and then you have new information, right? So like there are different variations on that, and then it's about designing the constraints. We are moving in this direction. Like, is this thing moving us towards having a bigger social media presence? I don't know, maybe. Like rather than doing an experiment trying to get five people to sign up, and you could do all that stuff. Or like how can we create a type of media like that might be interesting to some group of people that we want to like attract in the world, right? So in the case of the videos, like or the Figma things, like you did an experiment, like let's put this on Dribble, and now you have information back about like okay, so we need a little bit of polished stuff, we need a little bit of this kind of thing, because it's not meeting the whole goal, but it was a
Yeah.
simple experiment. And you had somebody who was willing to take it on. If that person then, if that person comes up with the experiment themselves and then actuates it, and then you're like, just don't do too much. A bit is fine. Then they can accomplish that. This is it's about mediating the effort put in so that you're putting in the minimal amount of effort, so that you can continue to experiment, because a lot of the experiments are going to fail. That's fine. The failure is information. So this is how I'm thinking about this. How do you keep everybody goofing around? like they feel free to play with things. And then when you come together into a group, you've got a mindset that is exploratory. What about this? What about that? I don't know about this, but maybe that, this whole thing. And that can be across any media. And then sometimes you're not leading it, you're just sitting around, or sometimes you're not there at all if necessary, because people need to play without you. So
Oh, that
I
would
don't
be
know.
so much fun. Like you come back from a 3 weeks vacation and like, what did you guys do? Oh, we did these experiments, and then there is a certain the same thing I'm trying to rip before I like how kind of ideas grow until they become a thing. This
Mm-hmm.
morning I woke up, I'm like, I should probably just hire designers for every single role and then just teach them how to do it. And then they would do it because they would approach it from the design, because we know how to plan design. It's
Sure.
just like 1 week for this, 2 weeks for this. We are
Yeah.
putting constraint on all of these experimentations, and we're like, by this time, no more experimentation. We should
Yeah.
know what the fuck we're doing. And same thing I need to do with all the other roles. So I need to go running an experiment for this amount of time. But until then, after that, you need to kind of figure it out. Um,
Just start with
or
run the experiment first. See what
yeah,
that produces, and then see what you know next. You don't have to plan all of it. For
no,
now,
because
it's
the
yeah.
problem is like you would see some people are spending like, how long has it been?
Mm,
2 or 3 weeks. What are you guys doing? Uh,
yeah.
um, we tried this, and then it's usually the conversation kind of ends there. Like, and
Yeah.
like, what was the outcome? Did you try something else then? Like, play around with a bunch of different ideas, and then be very focused on what it is that you want to accomplish with this experiment. Like, there are some ground rules when it comes to what makes a good experiment worthy of trying and what's a
Sure.
good time to do it.
Yeah.
And um, and I feel like if I just figure that out as a process, that would make it so that if there is a problem, everybody is trained in a way that they would know experimentation time, fun time. Let's just bring down some ideas, and then we try each of these experiments for this amount of time. And we should have more clarity in terms of what the next step should be at this time, next time we meet. Um, so you would go on a 3 weeks vacation, you come back, what happened? Hey, we tried this, and what did you guys learn? These things are amazing. I
Yeah.
learned something by the time that I come back, rather than, it would be more of a, um, oh, you guys been stuck? Nothing worked. What did you guys try? Nothing? Just the
Yeah.
same thing? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think your meta practice is figuring out how to produce environments where experimentation is fruitful.
Yes.
What are the toggles, the variables that create, like, is it groups of people? Is there so our cadence is every week we meet, and we don't necessarily have a standing meeting, but we've sort of agreed that we're going to meet on a weekly basis. And then during that meeting, we unpack whatever we need to unpack. We work on whatever we need to work on. We talk about certain things, or we physically work synchronously. And at the end of the meeting, we decide what we're going to do over the period till the next meeting. And that changes based on week to week. And so, and everybody is agreeing to do whatever they're going to do. And then it's a handshake. We're going to do it. And we've started documenting some of this stuff. We're experimenting with methods of figuring out how to communicate what is being worked on, like through Discord or whatever. Like we're trying each week, we try things, um, and like through GitHub or whatever. And then we talk about what's working, what's not working, where there are frictions, and then the group will just, like. But I know that all the rest of the people in the group, like, will show up and participate in this thing to the degree that they can, right? I trust that. I don't need to herd them or assign them anything, right? They just but that required it took us months to build the trust to be able to do this. Um, that's just one method. I mean, there's a bunch of different methods. You could have things that are, and this is pretty free form because we're trying to build something large, which means that we need to have a basis of trust to build that larger thing. Um, I don't know. There's a bunch of different ways to experiment with this, and it's sort of you have to have the right people who are willing to do this too, and you have to be able to talk to them about what you're doing. It seems like what we're doing here is playing with this like this. How do you see what we're doing? What do you think what we're doing? What is your perspective on what we're doing? Like, oh, that's interesting. I was thinking about it like this. There's a meta discussion about the act of experimentation. Like, if you can't have that, then it's going to be really hard to do this. Like, there might be some process that you can encode that people can follow, but I don't know. I haven't seen it work. But there's a lot of stuff I haven't seen, so who knows?
Innovation.
Yeah, there's a book. What was it? I think it may be called Designing with Uncertainty. I don't know. This dude who I think his name is Von Tan. Uh, he studied restaurants and really innovative restaurants who have to make new ideas and like work with the cycle of the like market to come up with like types of dishes and products and stuff like this to stay alive in the restaurant industry. And
Yeah.
these people are very creative. And I haven't read the book, but I was reading his newsletter for a while, and so he was touching on a lot of like how do you design uh, playful experimental systems with enough slack in them to be able to survive when there are radical changes in environment. So there might be some like mentalities in that thing. I think I can send you a link if you're interested.
Yeah, for sure. Playful experimental systems, radical changes in environments. I mean, all of this sounds like
Yeah.
what we are doing.
Yep.
Just need
Uncertain.
to.
It's called the uncertainty mindset.
Did you read it? Did you read it?
I haven't yet, but I've read a lot of like I have it somewhere. I don't know where. I think maybe I got the Kindle version. Here, just put it in
Section
Telegram.
insight from the. I got it.
Yeah,
Von Tan, right?
yeah. He had a newsletter that I was
Yeah.
following for a while. He got very political during COVID though, and like flipped out. So I unfollowed him for a bit. I should probably go check back in to see if his brain has calmed down some. Uh, yeah, I think he's very like. I think he was at Google for a while, so he's like pretty quantitative. Um,
I
anyways,
like
I.
how it's kind of shape, like somebody's at Google, you're like, valid. It's been
Yeah.
validated.
I mean, he's smart enough to have been able to get into Google. That's all I know, which is a type of intelligence. But then he left and is doing his own thing. So that's also information. Uh, so when I was following him, this is like a year and a half ago when it was a lead up to the book. So he's talking a lot about what's in the book and how he's doing the case studies. Uh, and then it was interesting because he went to the food industry, which I don't know a ton about. So like it's a good place to learn about how they do business because it's so different from what I'm doing, right? And usually those case studies they apply globally, but you're not locked into what you already know. So I like that. But yeah. Anyways, I need to read it. I think I'm gonna go eat food. We've done good work
Yeah.
again.
Yeah.
Covered a lot of ground.
as usual,
Mm-hmm.
breaking new grounds.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm curious to watch this one back because we were both able to like sort of talk about some process stuff, and like I was able
Yeah.
to communicate some of what I've been thinking about with the like collaborative stuff and how that's working. None of it's made any money yet, so we'll see. But like the fundaments on Web3 seem to be like completely aligned with this mentality because like all of these things are communal and collaborative and like invitational, and like a big part of designing these projects is giving people a playground to play with stuff that they're super interested in. Like that's what you're designing. Like so I don't know. We'll see. It's like game design. I need to look more into game design. That's the experiments too. Give them games to play. People love to play games. And if those games can like output something that's useful to continue playing games, you get to play games for a living.
I wonder though, like I like experiments. I like to play around with ideas. I don't like games.
That's a game.
Duh. Every time you say make a game, I'm like, oh, that's alien language to me. Like, where do I even
Yeah.
begin? But then experimentations and stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, I get it. But for whatever reason, I never because I feel like games are pointless in a
Yeah.
way that there is no, yeah, there's no reward in them. Just like,
Cap
oh, here's a coin, or like whatever the game, however
I
it
mean,
ends.
Twitter is a game. Instagram is a game. The game is
I
to
don't like
get the most
it.
likes and to get the, whatever, so that you can get your attention, so that you can attach to a brand. And then the next game is to like up it, up it, up it, up it to get more and more. It's a game. All these things are games. You can game them. You can like play with this strategy or that strategy. Capitalism is a game. How do you get the most money? All right, I am a player that does this. That's how I look at it. Game theory.
Man, your thing should be game it to figure to game it to what?
Game it to claim it.
Yeah, there you go. Game it to claim it. Day by day.
Yeah. Yeah,
How's
Kristen's good at the game design because it's just bringing people together to cooperate and play with each other. That's just games.
I think you're the master of it.
No. There are people who are very good at this stuff. I'm learning though, figuring it out. Just have to like make experiments and then like put people together in a room and then see what they do and then play with that. Anyway. All right. I'm
All
out of here.
right,
Till next
cool.
time. Later,
Till
man.
next. Bye.
Bye.